All right, welcome to Front Office Pros. I'm Dustin. That's Joe. I am not Steve. Steve is traveling for work, but we're here to give you week 2 sits and starts. So what we'll do is we'll go through every position group. We'll give you a smash play, a sleeper play, and then a stinker play. So Joe, why don't you start off with your smash play at quarterback?
Yeah, so my smash play at quarterback this week is going to be Derek Carr. And I know that's going to surprise some because he's kind of been an under the radar quarterback and pretty much an afterthought. But he threw for over 300 yards in week 1. PFF's got a strength of schedule rating as a 9.8 this week, which closer you get to 10, that's like the perfect score, and that's the best matchup. So as you can see, he's right there. And the Panthers, their top corner is out this week, and I think Carr is able to have another game over 300 yards, maybe throw for a couple of touchdowns, and the big plays down the field are going to be there for Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed again this week.
Yeah, I like that play. I mean, Carr really impressed me last week. Didn't have a ton of touchdowns, but efficiency-wise, threw a ton of yards. I like it. So let me ask you, would you start Derek Carr over Russell Wilson?
I would, yes.
As a Broncos fan, that's a big one for you. I know.
As a Broncos fan, I know. I just think as far as the ceiling play, Carr is going to get you those deep plays on the field. That's something the Broncos have lacked. I think Judy will help in that with this week, but it was more dink and dunk last week, and probably more the same against the dominant front of the Commanders.
Let me ask you, what about quarterback tonight, Kirk Cousins on the Thursday night game?
Yeah. Oh, I'm definitely playing Derek Carr over Kirk Cousins. I think I'm nervous about Kirk Cousins. They say primetime Kirk. We saw this matchup play out last year against the Eagles, week 2, same week in Philly, and they just dominated, and I'm kind of worried about that.
I agree. So before we dig in, how about Mac Jones? Would you start Derek Carr over Mac Jones?
That's interesting. I do like Mac Jones as well, but I still think I'd give the advantage to Carr in that one.
So you're worried about Kirk Cousins tonight. We're about an hour. We're live. We're about an hour before kickoff. What are your thoughts on this Thursday night game between the Vikings and the Eagles? How do you think that plays out? What are some of the key things you're looking at to watch in this game?
Yeah, honestly, my focus is going to be on the Vikings and that offense. Just seeing if they can do more than they were able to do last year. That's what I'm taking a look at. I mean, Kirk has notoriously not been able to play in the prime time. Even Justin Jefferson didn't have a very good game last year. Darius Slay really locked him down. So I want to see if Justin Jefferson can bounce back and create those plays against Slay.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm curious to see if the Eagles defense can hold up. We thought they were going to be really good. They made the Patriots look really good on offense, so we'll see. Obviously, Justin Jefferson's great. Everyone's expecting Addison to take over tonight. I don't think it's going to happen. I still think it's going to be a TJ Hockenson game, which we'll get into later. But yeah, I think it's going to be a fun game. It should be a good Thursday night game, which has been historically not great. Thursday night games have always kind of been meh, and hopefully we get a good one tonight. So looking forward to that. My sleeper quarterback for this week is CJ Stroud of the Houston Texans. He's playing against the Colts defense, which allowed Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars to throw for 241 yards, 2 touchdowns, and interception. Stroud looked what we thought he was going to be. He's vanilla. He doesn't have a huge rushing upside, but he also doesn't make the mistakes that you saw from like Bryce Young. I think he's a sneaky sleeper play this week. I think he can get into like the top 15 range going against the Colts. I like CJ Stroud. I think he's a very good passer. I think 2 weeks into the season, it's only a second start. I'm not expecting huge numbers for him, but I think he's a sleepy, sneaky start this week at quarterback.
Yeah, I like it. I agree with you. I think with the matchup, there's definitely potential. I like your sleeper pick call out here. So
go ahead.
Oh, okay. So seeing how he's your sleeper, would you be willing to start Stroud over Baker Mayfield this week?
I would. I think Baker played last week with a huge chip on his shoulder, and I don't expect that same level of play week to week. So, yes, I would start CJ Stroud over Baker Mayfield.
How about Kenny Pickett?
Honestly, I'm going to start pretty much anybody over Kenny Pickett at this point. No Deontay Johnson. Freiermuth might be hurt. So you're looking at, George Pickens and Allen Robinson. Not great for Kenny Pickett. He did not look good last week. Everybody's expecting this jump this year from Pickett. So he might be the 32nd ranked quarterback for me this week.
Wow. Interesting. How about Ryan Tannehill?
That's interesting. I think Tannehill is another vanilla quarterback, very much like Stroud. Hopkins does have an ankle injury. Doesn't sound like he may play. He may not. Said it might be high ankle, might not be. No one really knows. Even if Hopkins plays, I wasn't impressed with Treylon Burks. Nick Westbrook-Akine is okay, but I would probably still start C.J. Stroud over Ryan Tannehill just because I like the upside. I think he has slightly better weapons. Obviously, Hopkins is the best receiver there, but I think as a whole, the Houston receivers are better.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. I was honestly surprised how much Tannehill struggled last week, and the throws just weren't there. He threw 3 interceptions in that game. Probably should have been 4. I just was expecting him to be recovered from the injury and put out a little better of a showing.
Yeah, I agree. And so let's go over who is your stinker play at quarterback this week.
And my stinker play this week is going to be Dak Prescott. Obviously, Dak Prescott and that Cowboys offense didn't have to do too much last week against the Giants. The defense pitched a shutout, scored on special teams, scored on defense, and overall just was a really dominant showing. And I think there's a chance for more of the same this week, against the Jets with Zach Wilson now at quarterback. And I just don't see Dak and this offense having to do too much. And then, even on the offensive side, this Jets defense, they showed on Monday night, they are an elite defense. And I think that even limits Dak's upside anyways.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, you called Josh Allen last week as your stinker, I believe. And that turned out to be great. I mean, you probably got a lot of people raising some eyebrows at that, but it worked out. So would you start Dak Prescott over Deshaun Watson this week?
No, I'm not. I will. I'm not the biggest Deshaun Watson fan. I think have his concerns, but I'm willing to. I think the ceiling for Watson against the Steelers is going to be higher than Dak's.
Okay. What about Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers?
Yeah, I'm definitely playing Brock Purdy over Dak Prescott.
Okay. I agree. I like that play. Brock Purdy can set the record for like most games. Like it's like 7 starting games. If he has 2 touchdowns, it'll be a record or some nonsense. There was some blurb about that. And are you starting Dak Prescott or Jordan Love?
That's an interesting one. I think I'll ride with Jordan Love in the hot hand there. Okay. Going into Atlanta, it's going to be an interesting matchup. Jesse Bates had a good game on that Atlanta defense. But yeah, I'd be willing to start all 3 of those guys.
All right, excellent. We're going to jump to wide receivers because I see a comment here from Toronto Dave. Toronto Dave, thanks for hopping on. If you guys don't know Toronto Dave, he is one of the nicest people around on the planet, not just because he's Canadian, just in general. But he wants to know, what are your all thoughts on DJ Moore this week? Let's say PPR. Joe, what are your thoughts on DJ Moore this week?
Yeah, DJ Moore, I've got him in a couple leagues, and it was a pretty disappointing showing last week. But I think I'm playing them this week. I think, the Bears offense possibly rebounds. Tampa Bay, that defense isn't the best matchup. But, I think maybe after they watch some film, they get together and just see how bad things went against the Packers and try to do something and figure out a way to get this guy the ball more. And I think we could possibly have, a correction into this week. So I'm going to still start him this week.
Yeah, I'm still starting him. I'm going to lower my expectations. I was never a DJ Moore believer. I think he's a solid wide receiver too in fantasy. He's going to score you 10 to 12, 13 points. I think that's his ceiling, and I think that's his floor is close to that 10, 9 points. He's not going to be a complete bust. Obviously, we all know Chase Claypool probably doesn't want to play for the Bears. He has no incentive to be there. He might be inactive. I think Darnell Mooney is becoming the true alpha there. But I just don't see either of them really taking off. I think DJ Moore is a fine play. I think people expected him to be this new wide receiver 1, going to a new team, getting off from Carolina, going with Justin Fields. I just don't see it there. But I still think he's a dynasty or a fantasy asset. Not so much in dynasty because I think he's getting older. But I think this week in fantasy you can play him. But I think you're looking at wide receiver 2 range for DJ Moore this week. So it's disappointing if you had high hopes for him, but I still think he is going to produce roughly, I think end of year, he'll be at what his ADP was, maybe a little lower, but I don't think he's going to be a complete bust for you. But I'm not expecting this breakout year from DJ Moore.
Yeah, I definitely expected him to be better, but, to your point, I didn't really expect him to really perform higher than like a wide receiver 2 for me on my teams.
Yep. So thanks for that question, Toronto. If you guys have questions, throw them in the comments. We'll love to answer questions for you guys. So let's stick with wide receivers. Who is your wide receiver smash this week?
Yeah, I'm hoping to rebound on this one this week. Obviously, I called out Jahan Dotson last week. Didn't go too well, even though he did lead the team in targets, but still didn't perform like I thought he would against that Cardinals defense.
Yeah.
But I'm going to try it again, and I'm going to go with Nico Collins this week. Texans have the highest PFF strength of schedule grade at a perfect 10 at the wide receiver position against the Colts. And obviously, if you watched week 1, Calvin Ridley and Trevor Lawrence absolutely destroyed the Colts defense, and Ridley had a monster game. And obviously taking your sleeper quarterback this week, and I think Stroud's got a chance to ball out.
Yeah, I agree. I think Nico Collins is a smash this week. I like what I saw from him just in the opportunities. I think that offense is going to start clicking more and more. Agree. It's the right mix of everything for them this week against the Colts. So are you starting Nico Collins over tonight's hot buzz name, Jordan Addison?
That is tough. I don't, I think I'd still play Addison, so I don't think I'd play him there. That might be where I draw the line. I don't know what to expect from this Vikings offense. I just like Addison's potential and role in the offense here.
What about last week's one of last week's busts? There was a few of them, but Drake London. Are you starting Nico Collins over Drake London this week?
For sure. I'm not a real believer in Drake London. I wasn't high on him heading into the season. The Falcons just simply don't pass the ball enough. And Arthur Smith does not care about your fantasy team at all. Whether you have Pitts, Drake London doesn't care. So, yeah, absolutely.
He doesn't care if you have Bijan Robinson. Like, he's still going to split those carries between him and Tyler Algier. What about your Broncos, Courtland Sutton? Are you starting Nico Collins over Courtland Sutton this week?
Yeah, I'll play Nico Collins over Courtland Sutton. I was disappointed with Courtland Sutton's performance last week. He, no Jerry Jeudy, thought he was going to get the hyper targets, but literally his 4 targets came on one drive in either second quarter or third quarter, and it was just really disappointing. And luckily, if you did play him, you got a touchdown, but other than that, it was just disappointing.
Yeah, and surprisingly, Marvin Mims didn't have a ton of targets. Greg Dulcich didn't have a ton of targets. Now he's hurt. So I agree with you. I think I would start Nico Collins over Courtland Sutton this week. My sleeper wide receiver this week is rookie Rashee Rice of the Kansas City Chiefs. We just saw Michael Pittman burn Jacksonville last week. Like, he had a monster game with a rookie quarterback. Rashee Rice looked good in his first game in that Kansas City offense. He has Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball. I think Travis Kelce plays this week, so that I think we'll shift some of the safety coverage, which allows him some little more room on the outside. Obviously, we know Kansas City is looking for their number one true wide receiver. They tried Juju last year, didn't work. Sky Moore is a bust. Tony's a bust. It might just be Rashee Rice, and I like what I saw from him. I liked his snap share. I liked his target volume. I liked his routes run. All those numbers looked good for a rookie, so I think he's a sleeper pick this week. Because with Mahomes, obviously, you want someone in a good offense. You want someone with a good quarterback, and that is Kansas City and Mahomes. So I think Rashee Rice projects well to do well this week as a sleeper pick. He's not ranked real high on a lot of lists, but I think you can slide him into your wide receiver 3 role and get some upside with him.
Yeah, I like to play. Steve is going to really agree with you on this one. He's really liked Rashee Rice. But it's hard to blame him. I mean, there wasn't many standout wide receivers for the Chiefs last week. Obviously, Tony couldn't catch the ball. Sky Moore ran the most routes, but didn't get the targets. And Rashee Rice played pretty well, got in the end zone. So I don't hate the play, and think he could definitely take a shot on him in your flex.
Yeah.
So you like Rashee Rice? Would you start him over the hot guy from last week, Kendrick Bourne?
Yeah, I would. So Kendrick Bourne's going to be playing in New England. There's a huge potential storm coming in that day, so that weather game might be just totally rained out, very much like last week. So I'm going to start Rashee Rice just for that upside potential. It's a boom-bust play with Rashee Rice. Kendrick Bourne may see more targets and volume, but I'm hoping Rashee Rice can get some of those deep balls, kind of morph into what we think McCole Hardman, MVS have always were supposed to be. So yeah, I'll start Rashee Rice just for the upside and the fun on a better offense with a better quarterback in a hopefully not monsoon game that they're going to have up in New England.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't realize about the weather, but that definitely is something to monitor in that one for sure.
And so if you have New England, and I forget who New England's playing this week, but that game is talked about
the
like
Dolphins.
Yeah, so it's talked about basically being like horrible weather. Now, the weather reports have that it could end before the game and it could be fine, or it could linger and be like hurricane weather during the game. So we might just see another like 3 passes from Mac Jones type game. Like that's what we're expecting. We could see New England this week.
I don't like hearing that, as I have Tua in a couple of leagues here.
I'm pivoting off Tua for a couple of these leagues too.
Yeah. All right. So would you start Odell Beckham Jr. over Rashee Rice?
You know, I've on this show with Steve, we have a Odell Beckham DJ Chark bet. I like what I saw from Beckham last week. It's looking really good. DJ Chark obviously is still hurt, which was part of my contention that he's always going to be hurt. I like the Ravens offense, but I think Zay Flowers is the one. Mark Andrews will be back. So I think Odell Beckham's going to take a step back a little bit. I think they're going to try to work him out a little more, to be honest with you, because I think they want to save him for deeper stretches. So they don't want to be playing him a ton of snaps. So I definitely think Rashee Rice will be out there for more snaps, run more routes, and probably should see more targets than Odell Beckham. So I'm firing up Rice over OBJ this week.
All right. So same to you. Here's a player you asked me about. How about Drake London?
Yeah, start anybody over Drake London. I think we just have to admit the fact that Drake London might just not be good. Like, and same thing with Kyle Pitts. Like, we just have to admit that maybe they're just okay. Like, maybe Kyle Pitts is the new Evan Ingram, where he had a great rookie year and then just sucks for 4 years, right? That just could be. And Drake London might be Jalen Reagor, where like he had a couple good games and then just falls apart. Like, I don't want to ever start Drake London in any league I'm ever in unless I'm desperate.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I'm out on Drake London until that passing volume comes up, or maybe there's a matchup that's going to force the Falcons offense to pass. You know, I'm definitely looking elsewhere.
No, I agree. And so who is your stinker wide receiver this week?
Yeah, my stinker wide receiver this week is, unfortunately, it's Garrett Wilson. I was so excited for Garrett Wilson, excited for that breakout year. Obviously, Rodgers goes down. It's now Zach Wilson. And obviously, if you had Garrett Wilson last year, you know what the splits are like compared to when Zach Wilson played versus Mike White. He played much better with Mike White. I am expecting Zach Wilson to play better, but, this week's not the week. I think, Garrett Wilson's just going to be a matchup-dependent wide receiver at this point, and he's got the Cowboys and that vaunted defensive front that they have, so I'd pivot off him.
Yeah, I don't blame in that one. I think until we see Zach Wilson be better than what he's been, but against the Cowboys defense, even if they had Aaron Rodgers, I'd be fading Garrett Wilson this week against the Cowboys defense. So really? Would you start Garrett Wilson or Amari Cooper?
Yeah, I'll fire up Cooper.
Yeah, I like the volume there. How about Chris Godwin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Yeah, I would play Godwin. I think it'll be interesting to see how this week 2 goes for this Bucs offense. Baker Mayfield didn't look terrible. He got Evans and Godwin the ball. Chicago's defense, isn't the best, so it's not a horrible matchup. I'd play Godwin.
Yeah, and what about across the field from Godwin, Mike Evans?
Oh, yeah, at this point, I definitely would. I'd start all 3 of those guys over Garrett Wilson, unfortunately, to say that.
No, I agree with you on all 3 of those. I think even though Baker's just okay, I think he has enough volume. Rachaad White looked okay as a running back, so I think Tampa's going to have to throw. So I like both Godwin and Evans. Let's transition now to running backs. My smash play for running backs this week is former Clemson running back Travis Etienne. Kansas City defense was not great last week against the run. Both David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs had decent days on the ground. Yes, Chris Jones is back for Kansas City, but he's more of a middle of the line. Like, he's an interior lineman. That's not Travis Etienne's forte. His forte is to get out on the wings, kind of go lateral and then turn it up the field. So I like Etienne this week. I think he's a smash play for you this week in fantasy.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that that Etienne was going to be your smash play. I know if Steve was listening in, he'd hate your smash play here with Etienne, but he's not here, and I think you do have a point though. Like the Jacksonville run game, they tend to do those outside zone plays and the big runs that Etienne gets is on the edge.
Yeah.
So I don't hate your call out. I get the path there. So would you start Josh Jacobs over Etienne?
I'm going to go with no. I'm going to start Etienne over Jacobs. I think Jacobs is the more talented back, but this week against the Bills, I'm worried about Jacobs getting the room to run. He is a middle of the field, like inside runner. I think the Bills can eat that up. They had put a ton of pressure on. I just worry about the Raiders' offense this week against the Bills. And I think the Bills will have a bounce back and score points. The Raiders are going to have to throw.
Interesting. I love Josh Jacobs in this matchup. The Bills' weakness is stopping the run, and you saw it. I mean, Brees Hall was already breaking those big ones. Yeah. Until they prove they can stop the run, I'd be firing up Josh Jacobs. But how about Christian McCaffrey?
No, that's where I'm not. You can't not play Christian McCaffrey. Like if you have him now, if you have him and Etienne, I think it's great. McCaffrey is going to be an every week starter until we see otherwise. I was a little worried last week when they were talking about this committee approach, but the 49ers got up and they were still running McCaffrey. Like fourth quarter, up by 2 scores, they're still running McCaffrey. So I'm not worried about McCaffrey. I'm still starting him over Etienne.
Yeah, Steve was trying to make me nervous, sending me all that crap as well. It definitely didn't help, and he kept talking about Elijah Mitchell, this and that, and I'm like, dude, I might have to worry about Elijah Mitchell for a couple weeks until that guy's hurt too.
Yeah.
But how about Nick Chubb? Would you start him over Travis Etienne?
This is another tough one because I like Chubb and I like his volume. I just worry about his durability. I didn't really love the efficiency this past week from Nick Chubb. I don't really love the Cleveland offense. So I think you can go either way. If I had to make that choice, I'm probably picking Chubb just because of what he did last year. But I think there's a pathway for Etienne. It's not going to surprise me if Etienne outscores Chubb this week. It's just hard to bench Nick Chubb when you draft him end of the first round, early second, for there to be this high volume running back. It's hard to bench that, especially in week 2. Now, if we're talking week 5, it might be a different story. We just don't have a ton of data about this year. So I'm still going to start Chubb, but it's super close for me.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, like you said, I mean, just the draft capital that you probably had to spend on Chubb, or even in the auction, the price you had to pay to get him. I think you're definitely in there. But it was a little concerning to see how much Jerome Ford got touches too. I mean, I think he had 15 carries in that game. So something.
In a game where they were up a ton, which is partly game script, so we'll see. The problem is week 2 is weird because we have one game data set, and if it doesn't match what we thought preseason, we worry. And then we go, well, is this the trend? And I'm always a big believer, and I said this on a pod the other night, that, once is a fluke, twice is a trend, 3 times a pattern. We don't have enough data to even get there yet. So this is the real week where week 3, that's when I start, get out of this, start your studs. It's start your studs week 1, week 2 for me. Week 3 is where I start going, okay, this is the trend. Let me go from there. So, Joe, who is your sleeper running back this week?
Yeah, my sleeper running back, I'm going with David Montgomery.
Ooh.
He's a guy that everyone had kind of wrote off. Everyone was so excited about Jahmyr Gibbs. But then, that opening Thursday night happens, and David Montgomery had 21 carries, which was definitely, more of a workload than I was expecting. But I'm expecting the Lions to get up in this one and, have a lead against the Seahawks. So I think he gets additional volume. And then the offensive line for the Lions has the second largest advantage over the Seahawks defensive line, according to PFF this week. And Seahawks allowed the 6th most fantasy points to running backs last season.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think everyone is excited about Gibbs and that upside and him getting more volume, but Dave Montgomery is a solid floor play. So I like him this week. I like him all season. So are you starting David Montgomery or Ramondre Stevenson?
I think I'd play Stevenson over him. You're talking about bad weather. The Patriots still run the ball. He's really the guy in the passing work and the rushing work. So I'd still start Stevenson over him.
How about Kenneth Walker in Seattle?
Now this is where I think I would go with Montgomery over Kenneth Walker. On the opposite side of the field here, the D line for the Lions, they're pretty good. I think they could slow down and plus all the injuries on the Seahawks offensive line, that's got me concerned for Geno and just this whole offense, honestly.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm worried that Seattle's just slowly falling apart. DK Metcalf came off and said, the effort wasn't there. It could just be a 1-year fluke from Seattle being that good. What about Aaron Jones?
Yeah, if that's it. I think if Aaron Jones isn't going to play due to injury, I'd go with Montgomery. But if Aaron Jones is going to play, I think I'd play Aaron Jones over Montgomery. But the hamstring is something to monitor. I think he missed practice again today, so it's not looking good. So I think Montgomery's a good guy, a pivot guy. If you do have Aaron Jones and you're looking for somebody to start in his place.
Yeah, I think I'm starting Montgomery over Aaron Jones, even if he plays, just because that hamstring could act up at any time. When you're missing practice on Thursday, Friday because of an injury, it doesn't bode well for you to play. Even if you do, you're probably limited. So, but I like that. I think he is a sleeper. My stinker is going to shock most people, and it is Bijan Robinson of the Atlanta Falcons.
I can't wait to hear this argument.
Listen, Bijan is athletic. I get it. But here's the problem is they're going to split carries. They always have. They always will. He's not going to see over 15 carries. The volume's just not there for me to be like, yes, Bijan Robinson's my RB1. Last year, the Atlanta Falcons only had like 5 games where the main running back got over 15 carries. Like that was an abnormally, like if you look at the top 15 running backs, they only had like 2 or 3 games each where they had under 15 carries. It just wasn't great efficiency from Atlanta. Tyler Algier is going to get work. If Cordero Patterson's back, he's going to get some passing volume. I just don't love it. Green Bay had a decent defense against the run. They held Chicago to 122 yards between the 3 running backs, Khalil Herbert, Roshan Johnson, D'Onta Foreman, and Justin Fields. So when you're holding Justin Fields, Khalil Herbert, and Roshan Johnson to under 120 yards, that says something about your run defense and the pressure you bring. I think Green Bay can put up points. I don't think Atlanta can put up points. So if they have to play from behind most of the game, they're going to be passing. Obviously, we don't like Drake London. We don't like Kyle Pitts. So I don't know who they're going to pass the ball to. Yes, Bijan gets some of that work, but I think Patterson might play. Algier can catch the ball. I just don't see Bijan as a RB1, maybe an RB2, but I think he's more of a flex play because he just doesn't get the volume right now.
Wow, Bijan is a flex play, man. That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I've been down on Bijan for the long time.
You have, yeah. I think just with his, I think the difference is though, just I try to tell this to Steve all the time. Bijan might just not need the volume. He's that explosive guy. Even that 11-yard touchdown reception that he had week 1 was just impressive. He puts on a move on Frankie Louvu. I think he's definitely, right now, he probably at least an RB2 on your team. He's definitely higher than a flex play.
I mean, you're going to have to play him because you drafted him as an RB1, so you're probably not going to have the luxury of benching him. Just don't know if I love it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely is better matchups out there than the Packers defense. I mean, you're not wrong about the matchup. Just, man, it's just for him to be a stinker. That's
the problem is everyone just expects Bijan to be Bijan Robinson, and we get enamored with players like that because of the name and because of the draft hype, and we don't realize what he actually is. I mean, yes, he scored 20 points last week on 10 carries for 56 yards, but a lot of that was 6 catches for 27 yards and a touchdown. If he doesn't get that reception work, 5.6 yards per carry is good. It's actually really good, but I don't know if he can continue that this week. I think I see him more in the 3.5, maybe 4 yards per carry. I see him getting maybe 10 carries again. Maybe he's an RB2. I just don't see him as this RB1, top 5 RB that everybody thinks Bijan Robinson is. And everyone this week will again be going, Arthur Smith, you have this young talent. Start him. He's just not going to. He doesn't care. Like, he's going to play his game plan, whatever it is. They won last week despite not using Kyle Pitts and Drake London and only using Bijan half the time. Like, they won. They're probably not going to win this week, but they're gonna have a decent year. And Arthur Smith's going to keep his job, and no one's going to bat an eye in the NFL. It's just us fantasy players.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that, if the Packers get ahead and have the lead and the Falcons are playing for behind, I mean, the biggest one to benefit, as you mentioned, Bijan with 6 receptions last week. Definitely Bijan will benefit that with the passing game, but it will be interesting to see if Patterson's going to play this week, what his involvement's like. guess the only the difference from last year though is they didn't spend the number 8 pick on a guy, and the draft capital. It would be mind blowing to me that you don't use your number 8 pick more.
I've never been a draft capital guy. Like, I get it, it's a number 8 pick, but Tyler Algier is the perfect example of why running backs don't get the contracts they want. Like, he was a 4th, 5th round pick and rushed for 1,000 yards. Like, you can get basically RB1 numbers from a 4th round guy. Like, you don't need to pay a guy. He's still a good running back. Like, he's going to put up yardage. I just don't see the split is just there. Yes, he did well on 10 carries. Bijan did. Patterson looks like he's going to play. He was a full participant in practice yesterday and today. Come back a thigh injury, so I think he's going to be out there. I mean, he is 32, but he will be the pass catching back, in my opinion. So I think a lot of that Bijan role goes away. I mean, Tyler Algier had 15 carries. Yeah. I mean, you have more carries than Bijan, and he still rushed for 5 yards of carry. So Carolina's defense wasn't great, obviously, against the run. So Packers have a much better rush defense. So I think it could be a bad week for Bijan Robinson. I think people will be really starting to panic there with their guy that they took super high without seeing anything from him. So he is my stinker.
Yeah, I mean, I think the path is there. I mean, it'd just be another guy for people to be throwing things at the TV and just cussing out Arthur Smith for not using this guy.
Yep. No, I agree.
All right. So going to your list here, would you be starting Tony Pollard over Bijan?
Yeah, I'm starting Tony Pollard. We saw last week with Dallas, even when they were up, again, they were running Pollard out there left and right. Everybody's thought Rico Duvalde would get some work, and he got nothing. So it's Tony Pollard's show. I can't see Tony Pollard not getting a ton of volume this week.
Yeah. I think if you got Tony Pollard, you're pretty much starting him. Yeah, absolutely. How about Jahmyr Gibbs?
Jahmyr Gibbs is an interesting one because he could get more pass volume. Obviously, I agree with you that Dave Montgomery is probably the more opportunity back for their Detroit, but I think I'm going to start Jahmyr Gibbs. Part of what makes fantasy fun is having those guys that are exciting. I have this browse method for building my teams where you balance reliability and opportunity with spikes and excitement. I want the spikes and excitement from Jahmyr Gibbs. I want that guy who can break off this 90-yard, swing pass. I want that excitement. You're going to get more excitement from starting Jahmyr Gibbs than you are Bijan Robinson. So I'll fire up Jahmyr Gibbs and hope for this high floor play against Seattle, and just kind of, even if Bijan has a great game, it's not going to be exciting.
Yeah. Doesn't he have Bijan have the big play potential though? I mean,
he has the big run play potential, but I don't think he has this awe-inspiring, like we saw last year with Jahmyr Gibbs. He catches the ball, he's spinning out of guys. Like, Bijan Robinson is just a fast, I'm going to bowl you over back. Yes, it's cool to see a guy rush for 80 yards, but him running for 80 yards is different than Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, Jahmyr Gibbs will run around people. Bijan Robinson will run through people. Like, I'll take the guy who's going to spin and be exciting. I'll take that. Plus, you got Jahmyr Gibbs so much cheaper that you're excited about it.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean,
the expectation for Bijan is running back 1. The expectation for Jahmyr Gibbs has been RB2, and I think if they flop roles, you're more excited.
Yeah, so you're not a big fan of the Kyle Brandt angry run segment then?
Listen, I love Kyle Brandt. I love angry runs, but he got it wrong this week. How do you give Baker Mayfield the scepter? Listen, Kyle Brandt, if you're watching, and I know you are, you can't give it to Baker Mayfield. It just made no sense. Roschon Johnson literally ran into a guy, and the guy flew back 3 feet. Baker Mayfield just ran into a guy and was like, "Oh, don't touch me. Oh, you fell to the ground?" No. Roschon Johnson should have won. He literally trucked one of the defenders for the Packers and just hit him, and he flew back. I get it. It's Baker Mayfield. And you go, "Oh, cool. A small quarterback wins it. It's for the novelty of it." No, Roschon Johnson would have won. So I'm on a little bit of a strike. I'm on tentative ground with Kyle Brandt right now with his angry runs for Roschon not winning week 1.
Interesting. So you didn't like Baker saying, "Get your weight up."
No. Oh, cool. Get your weight up. Cool, Baker. How about you get your passes up so they don't get blocked behind the line? How about you get your point level up, your yardage up? Like, you're not just Baker Mayfield. You're not exactly the creme de la creme of quarterbacks right now. You've been on 6 teams in 3 years. Come on now.
Yeah. I thought it was an interesting selection myself, but moving on here, how about Raheem Mostert?
That's an interesting one. He's dealing with an injury. It sounds like it's not a big deal. I was disappointed with the lack of volume and efficiency from Mostert. So I'd probably still start Bijan over Mostert. I don't know what's happening with Devin Etienne if he's playing this week. Salvin Ahmed's there. It is probably going to be this monsoon game in New England, so Miami might run a little more. I just wasn't excited about Mostert and what I saw. I was expecting a lot more out of him last week, so I'm going to start Bijan over Mostert, but it is pretty close for me.
Wow, man. I think only for you. I think most people would just be.
Oh, yeah, everyone's smashing Bijan, and I think, but
Yeah.
I think everyone's going to be kind of let down with Bijan this week.
Well, we'll see. Maybe week 3, maybe we'll see if they start equaling your thinking here. And
we'll see.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the tight end position. My smash play is the guy tonight, TJ Hockenson for the Minnesota Vikings. He should be tipped going in about 30 minutes, 40 minutes. So if you don't have him in your lineup, you need to get him in there right now. Listen, ton of volume against the Eagles, who made Hunter Henry look like the number one guy last. Like, Hunter Henry was tight end 1 last week in fantasy. Hunter Henry's not that good. TJ Hockenson is a beast out there. They use him in that offense. They are throwing out exotic looks. Let's just face it, Minnesota was running 3-4 wide receiver sets, where it was Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne, TJ Hockenson, and CJ Ham. Like, matchups galore. Like, they're just getting all kinds of crazy out there. Kirk Cousins is efficient. He's going to get a ton of volume. It's Thursday night. Play TJ Hockenson. I get it. You drafted him to be a top guy. He is a top guy. You start TJ Hockenson this week.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Starting guys on Thursday night scares me because for whatever reason, my players, when I start them on Thursday night, don't seem to perform. And it's almost like Thursday nights are feast or famine. Like, either the guys go absolutely off or you're just disappointed with their performance.
Yeah, we'll talk. Of course, the conversation is going to be, Kirk Cousins, primetime game. Can he do well? I think he breaks that mold a little bit tonight. I think TJ Hockenson has a good game.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll be excited for that because I want to watch a good game tonight.
Yeah, and the Eagles have no James Bradbury. Slay's going to be on Jefferson. They're going to shade some, safety help over there. So I think it opens up a ton of room over the middle for TJ Hockenson this week.
Yeah, it could make some sense. And, the Eagles have a whole new linebacking core this year as well. So how about, are you starting TJ Hockenson over Travis Kelce?
Let me get real spicy here. Yes.
Wow.
If I had to make that decision, yes. Kelce in a normal situation is better, but Kelce is still banged up. Like, he still has that knee issue. He should play, but he's not 100%. Kelce at 100%, I'm starting Kelce all day, but he's not 100%, so I still might lean Hockenson. I still am going to lean Hockenson this week.
Man, very interesting. That is a spicy take, but you have plenty of them.
I do.
How about Mark Andrews?
Listen, if I'm not starting Kelce because of injury, I'm not starting him over Mark. I'm not starting Mark Andrews because of injury as well. Again, if Mark Andrews is fully healthy, I'm starting him over Hockenson in most cases. But again, not healthy. And I wasn't real thrilled with the way the Ravens used tight ends in general last week. Isaiah Likely, 1 target. Charlie Kohler, 1 target. Like, everybody expected Likely to come in and get this huge volume because that's what Mark Andrews. I'm worried that Mark Andrews might just be a down year this year in this new Todd Monken air raid offense because I just didn't see it last week.
Yeah, it is a good point. Everyone was saying, if no Kelce, no Andrews, fire up Likely and he'll have a good game. And to your point, I think 1 catch for 4 yards. That was very disappointing. But how about Darren Waller?
Yeah, Darren Waller's dealing with this prolonged hamstring injury. Let's face it, it's the sciatic nerve. I'm 40 years old. I think anybody over 35 knows about their sciatic nerve. We know how much it hurts. I haven't been out on Waller all year. I would not have Waller on any of my teams. I don't have Waller. I would start Hockenson over Waller most weeks anyway. I think Waller's a trap waiting to happen.
Interesting. Well, yeah, the hype season was there for him. Everyone was just talking about how much Daniel Jones is going to hyper target him. But that's what I'm interested to see is how this Giants offense rebounds against the Cardinals this upcoming week after just getting completely destroyed by the Cowboys.
Yeah, I agree. They could just run the ball all over them, and they could just – I think the receivers in Isaiah Hodgins and Darius Slayton and Paris Campbell had down weeks. Obviously, the game just didn't go well against the Cowboys. So I think they're going to rebound that. So it could be a lot of Saquon Barkley, a lot of those receivers, and they might just rest Waller if they don't need him, especially late in the game. So, Joe, who is your sleeper tight end this week?
Yeah, my sleeper tight end is going to be the tight end 1 from last week, and that's Hunter Henry. To your point against the Eagles, we saw him catch 5 of 6 targets for 56 yards and a touchdown. Hard to believe that stat line was enough to be the tight end 1, but that's the world we live in with this tight end crapshoot. He's got the best matchup for tight ends this week, according to PFF. The Dolphins allowed the 4th most fantasy points to tight ends last week, and also allowed the 6th most fantasy points to the tight end position last year. Obviously, I didn't really know too much about that weather situation, so if it's truly as bad as you're saying, that might change things. But if the bad weather passes, Hunter Henry should be a great play this week.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you roll with Hunter Henry in this horrible tight end landscape we have right now. I think Hunter Henry's fine. So are you starting Hunter Henry over Sam Laporta?
I think I would, even though that's a tough call, because Sam Laporta had a pretty good showing for a rookie, on the opening night. I just, wonder how much the Lions are going to have to pass in that one, and if he doesn't get it early, he might not surpass Henry.
What about David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns?
Yeah, I'm not a believer in Njoku. I know Steve would probably disagree with me. He's a big Njoku guy, but I would still go with Hunter Henry.
I agree with you on that. I'm not a Njoku believer. And what about Mr. Meh, Kyle Pitts?
Yeah, you can't trust Kyle Pitts. Can't trust Arthur Smith in that Falcons offense. I'd stick with Henry. I honestly, if you got Pitts, London, it's just gonna have to be a wait and see approach, or wait for a matchup where you think the Falcons are gonna get blown out.
And the great part is, like, if you had London or Pitts this past week, like, you had options off waiver. You had Puka Nacua, you had Tutu Atwell, you had probably Zach Ertz. You had options on waivers you could pivot to. You probably still might have some guys, especially at tight end, that you can pick up now the waivers are over, to rotate, get off those guys if you need to. My stinker this week is Hayden Hurst of the Carolina Panthers. Listen, Bryce Young looked bad, like bad.
I tried to warn Steve.
He looked bad. Like, it was like he had 3 interceptions, could have been 4. Like, just looked bad. New Orleans has a good defense in terms of their linebackers and their safeties. They held Chig Okonkwo to basically only 2 targets on 30 routes. Now, Chig did drop a tight end or a touchdown he could have had. I think he dropped it or missed a pass. I'm not loving what I'm going to see from Hayden Hurst. Adam Thielen's coming back, right? He played last week, but he'll be fully healthy this week, so I'm excited about that. DJ Chark, who is washed, might play, but if he plays, he's still going to soak up some targets, even though he sucks. Like, he'll still get a couple targets so they realize, oh, yeah, this guy sucks. Let's never throw to him ever again. He's still going to take away some opportunities, so I just don't love Hayden Hurst in this matchup. Again, tight end's a wasteland. You can pivot off him. If you can get Zach Ertz, even if you get Trey McBride, I'm okay with that. I think there's plenty of people you can pivot off of if you can get away from Hayden Hurst this week.
Yeah, that's interesting. Hayden Hurst was somebody that I was pretty surprised about last week and how well he did. But I like the stinker call out. I do think things that can change in that Carolina offense. But I disagree with your strong hate for DJ Chark. I don't think he is washed, and he's not going to get you the most volume, but he's good for those couple of deep shots a game.
No, he's washed. He's been washed. He's just not good. Like, if he doesn't score a touchdown, he's just not good. He's beyond washed. Like, he's hot trash. I have my trash analogy. You know that. He's the garbage bag. He's the shopping bag, the plastic one that's been rolling around in your neighborhood park. It got tangled in a bush. It rained on it, and now the water's still inside, but the outside is still hot and crusty, but inside it's like wet and damp, and it's like lukewarm water, and there's like mold, and it looks like maybe a tadpole's growing in there. That's what DJ Chark is. Yes, he can still be a bag. You can still go out there and be like, yeah, put some targets in here, but you don't want to. It's gross. It's dirty. He's hot trash. Don't ever pick him up. Don't ever use him.
Wow, very interesting. I'm curious to see how this that bet goes between you and Steve for the rest of the year here.
Well, let's face it. If DJ Chark doesn't play this week, Odell Beckham's got a 2-week lead on him, so I think I'm doing pretty good. It was me, Steve, and Alex peaked in high school. So I think, and they're trying to say that they are trying to argue that it doesn't count if DJ Chark is hurt. And I said, that was my main point, is that DJ Chark is always hurt.
Yeah, that sounds like a clause they should have worked in there beforehand.
Yep.
But moving on here. So would you be starting Chig Okonkwo over Hayden Hurst?
No, I think I think bringing in Hopkins really killed that buzz for him. Treylon Burks doesn't look good. You think he should still be the second target in that offense, but he just isn't. Tannehill did not look good. So I'm out on Chig right now. I still think the talent's there, but until I see it a couple times, I'm not starting Chig Okonkwo.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Too, as we mentioned before, Tannehill just looked bad, and that play you referred to, Tannehill just overthrew Chig on that wheel route for a touchdown, and he did the same thing with Spears too. So I thought I'd like the wait and see approach there. How about Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid.
Here's the problem. I'm a Bills fan, and I've been kind of out on Kincaid because of Knox. I might start Kincaid over Hayden Hurst, probably not Dawson Knox. Both of them ran basically similar routes, a similar amount of plays as Hayden Hurst, but Hayden Hurst saw 7 targets. Kincaid and Knox both saw 4. I like the upside for Kincaid. I just don't think it's going to be much better, but I think I would start Kincaid, but Knox is probably equal. I'll probably start Knox just because I'm a Bills fan and I like Dawson Knox a lot. But that's just a crapshoot across the tight end position right there.
Yeah, definitely. You know what?
But again, if you want the excitement of Dalton Kincaid, I'm not going to fault you for it, but don't expect Travis Kelce numbers. What I expect from Kincaid this week is what Hayden Hurst did last week, which was 7 targets, 4 catches for 41 yards, maybe gets a touchdown.
Yeah, well, I'm curious to see if Dawson Knox is going to be able to get in the end zone at home. I was telling Steve, I just felt like every time I watched the Bills play at home, Knox found a way to get in the end zone, and we saw a spike out of him. So
he is Buffalo. I have his jersey hanging on the wall over here. He is Buffalo through and through. He has that mentality, that culture. He is what Buffalo is personified in a person.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. He definitely is that blue collar guy. How about Cade Otton?
Cade Otton's an interesting one because I liked what I saw from Cade Otton in terms of he played on 97% of snaps, ran a decent amount of routes, only saw 3 targets. God, I like Cade Otton. I just don't like Hayden Hurst. It's real tough. I think it's pick your poison. Either of them both kind of gross, but I think I might lead Cade Otton just because I think Baker Mayfield is a slightly better quarterback than Bryce Young right now, even though I don't think Baker Mayfield's that good, but I think the experience will get there. Baker Mayfield was able to make some tight ends relevant in his past history, so I'm excited for maybe Cade Otton. If Evans and Godwin get locked down, Cade Otton's the clear 3 there. So I'll probably slide it to Cade Otton just because I think Hayden Hurst is going to have a down week.
Yeah, plus, Otton and that Bucs offense really has a better matchup as far as that goes. So I agree. I'd give the edge to Otton there as well.
So as we get through, we just went through our quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, sit starts, our smash, sleeper, and stinker plays for each position. We'll do this every week for you guys. Normally it'll be Joe, and then Steve, who's off. I'm Dustin. We want to give you one more. We want to give you our stack of the week. So, Joe, who is your stack of the week? So, for those who don't know, a stack is a quarterback and a pass catcher that you can play maybe the DFS lineup, or if you have both of them, they're a great combination play because you get double points. So, Joe, who is your stack play of the week?
Yeah, my stack play of the week is going to be Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St.Brown. You mentioned the bad weather going on in New England, and, guess what? The advantage is the Lions playing at Dome, and don't got to worry about that. And last year, Jared Goff had his best games at home in the Dome. So him and Amon-Ra St.Brown against that Seattle defense should be a smash.
Yeah, I completely agree. I have a couple of leagues where I have Goff and Tua, and I started Goff last week, and I want to pivot to Tua, but I'm going, nope, I'm sticking with Goff at home. I have Amon-Ra St. Brown with that stack and a couple of them. I love that. I think it's going to be a great combination all year, but especially at home. The splits last year for Jared Goff were night and day different between home and away, and I don't know what it is. My stack of the week are 2 names we talked about. It is CJ Stroud and Nico Collins. I really love that combination. I think they're both under the radar plays that you can pick up. If you're playing DFS, they're going to be super cheap. You can pick that up. You'll see a ton of opportunities from the 2 of them. I think you'll see an end zone, a couple plays, probably a couple red zone targets, maybe a touchdown or 2. Nico Collins is huge. He's like 6'5". He's a big dude. Huge red zone target. So I think that's a sneaky stack. If you're looking for a cheaper option, if you want to, if you're doing a DFS lineup and you want to throw in a Christian McCaffrey and another high-end running back and maybe get a high-end tight end like a Kittle or a Kelce, this might be a cheap option for you. So I think it's a sleeper stack for me, but I like it this week.
Yeah, I like it this week as well. And, to your point, if you do play in the DFS and want those higher price RBs, wide receivers, what have you, I mean, Stroud and Nico Collins, you can get on the cheap.
Yeah, it saves you money. Like if you're going to go, Christian McCaffrey, and let's say you want to pick up Dallas defense, like one of the higher priced defenses and a high priced tight end and maybe another running back, like it does allow you to pivot and save some money there. So we are Front Office Pros. Those were our sit starts for week 2 of the NFL season, our smash, our sleepers, and our stinkers, plus our stacks of the week. We appreciate it. If you like this video, give us a subscribe, like, comment, all those fun things. Follow us on Twitter. You can find me at the DUnit13. Joe, where can they find you on Twitter?
At Joe_FOP.
Yep, and you can find FOP on Twitter, Front Office Pros. Thanks for dropping your comments. We'll see you guys next week.